So, hello and welcome back to my channel. You can probably see my jumper on the floor over there, but that's just how it is when you are lazy. I thought I would film a quick video on revision for health and social care exams. My last health and social care video did quite well. I don't really remember if I said anything that was actually of any use, but I thought I would talk you through how I revised. I didn't hugely revise. I don't want to get slated again, but I did not find the BTEC academically stimulating, which then it didn't really mean I had to revise, in the sense that a lot of it felt common knowledge to me, especially things like the Unit 3 biology. I did biology GCSE. I was also currently doing biology IB, which is A-level, so it was all less difficult than what I was doing at the time, if that makes sense. And like, I was also doing psychology, so Unit 4 of research methods is psychology. So it all just made sense to me, and it was all very straightforward. But basically, general revision tips. The exams, you always have a period of holiday time beforehand. So like for the January exams, you have Christmas holidays. For the exams in, is it May? You have Easter beforehand. That's a lot of time. So like, even if you haven't been revising as you go, that is a lot of time for you to do revision. As in making resources in the first week of that holiday and then revising for the second week. Plenty of time. Like, don't stress that you need to be revising as you go, because a lot of people are overwhelmed by the coursework, and because you're doing coursework at the same time as you're doing the exam unit, you don't need to be kind of panicking. Like, do your coursework, put your effort into the coursework, then once that's handed in, you have the holiday to revise for the exam. The exams, I would say, are more important than the coursework because they're harder to pass. Whereas the coursework, if you do a bad job and you get a merit, or you do a bad job and you get a pass, or like you don't do your best ability work, it's not the end of the world. It's 1 out of 11 courseworks. Is it 11? 9 courseworks? We did 4 exams, 9 courseworks, I think. A lot of people do it differently. Some people don't actually do any exams. So if you don't do any exams, this is not for you. But basically, second thing is print the spec. The spec in any subject is useful. If you don't have the spec, what are you doing? So like, I would use the spec as I went with coursework, and then when it came to exams, the spec tells you what you need to know, and it tells you pretty much in how much detail. So like, we barely learned about any of the Unit 1 genetic disorders like PKU, Huntington's, and the spec was then like, actually no, you need to know this. So we were like, oh, we should teach ourselves. Like, there was a lot of things that we were not taught in the class that could come up in the exam, like predictable and unpredictable life events. There was that thing, I haven't done it in years, but there was that rating of like how stressful a life event would be. And I've literally looked at one of the exams from the last year or two, and it was like, oh, name an unpredictable life event. And like, yes, you could guess, but there is a set that they want you to know. So go through the spec, figure out what you actually have been taught, what you haven't been taught. The spec will also roughly give you definitions of things, and it will roughly explain to you what you need to know. The spec is not your revision guide. The spec is your outline of, you need to know point 1 about this theory, and all the spec says is this theory. That then means that you need to go into the textbook or the revision guide and learn about that theory. The revision guide is everything. I did not buy a textbook. Do not buy a textbook in any subject, but textbooks are useless. Don't buy textbooks. My school had a textbook and it didn't add anything to me. I think I used it for Unit 10 once because it was good for my coursework. But buy the Pearson Revise First Revision Guide, $5.99 on Amazon. Don't buy the workbook. No, workbook is useless. Your teacher you should have access to like one set of exams. Like, everyone has access to one set of exams if you go on the Pearson website. Your teacher should have a login to the Pearson website where they can unlock the locked ones. If they don't, they kind of suck. Our teacher had a login so we could unlock those papers and do all of them. So even though only one set of papers was actually like unlocked for the public, because our teacher had the login, I did like 6 sets of papers. And once you've done enough past papers, you see how repetitive it is. The essay questions are all about the same thing. You know the structure of the paper, you know exactly how it's going to look. Especially for Unit 4, you have prep. You have so much prep. Google someone else's prep and copy their prep. Like, you have so much time. I think it's 12 hours of supervised prep. I was done within the first like 2 hours, which meant that I just then practiced it, which was boring and useless, but you've then done it. Like, you don't actually need to know much for Unit 4. You have all the answers in front of you. Learn how to do the prep. Google the prep, ask your teacher what the hell the prep is meant to include, and answer the questions in bullet points in prep, because you're done. There's 4 questions, you get 4 pages or 2 pages or something. You can have the answers with you before you go in. You don't actually have to know anything. Like, you can have the answers in bullet points and then just turn them into paragraphs. Then with Unit 2 is the one where it's in like 4 sections, like motor disability, sensory disability, that kind of thing. You can kind of gauge what they're going to ask you. But like, I would say the hardest points on the spec are about the GMC and the NMC and the CQC and the Cs and all of those. But here's what I didn't know, that my teacher just didn't tell me. You don't have to know anything for not your country. You only have to know for your country. So I was struggling to learn Ireland and Scotland. You don't need to know them. They're not. Your exam will just ask you about the council for medics in your country. You talk about the one for you, or like the council for healthcare regulation in your country. They don't care about the other ones. So if you've been forced to learn the other ones, ignore them. You do not need to know them. Double check with the spec, but I checked the spec and the spec said no, so I was not going to learn them. Then Unit 1 again, you just have to say pies all the time. You just have to, physical, intellectual, emotional, social needs, something like that. Every paragraph just needs to be about people's pies. How is it going to affect their physical needs, their social needs, all of that kind of rubbish. Like, Unit 1 is kind of waffly. Unit 2 is kind of, there is a correct answer, like you are objectively making a point. There is a fact, a statement that they want you to put in the exam. So like, look through the examiner's report of other people's questions. And also, if you think they've marked you wrong, remark. Because for my first exam, was 100% marked wrong, as in really wrong. In my mock, I got 78 out of 80. In my actual exam, I think I then got like 38. There is no way in hell that someone of my ability did drop that low. And I did not get my paper remarked because I thought I didn't need to. I thought, oh no, they must be right. I just must not be very good at these papers. No, resat the paper in July, resat the paper in May, June, didn't do a single piece of revision and came out with full marks. If you think your paper has been marked wrong, it has been marked wrong. I absolutely promise you. If your mock, if you got 50 in your mock and you then got 12 in your actual exam, remark. If you got 50 in your mock and 40 in your exam, that's fine. But like, if it was a significant drop, remark it, absolutely. Because don't reset exams you don't need to reset. I resat Unit 1 when I literally could have only got like 2 marks more. Like, the UMS points didn't make a difference. Do not bother resetting an exam that the UMS points will not add up to any new changes. Like, if you've got a pass and you can get, or if you've got like a low pass and you could get up to even just a low merit, that could be quite a big change. If you've got a low merit and you don't think you're going to get any better, don't bother. Like, if it's not going to affect your UMS, the UMS points you can score really quite low to get the overall. Most unis ask for DDM, roughly like that. In terms of UMS points, that's fine. You can literally get merits in pretty much everything and like 3 distinctions in a coursework, and you've got that. You can get a near pass in some of your exams and you've still got DDM. Like, I don't know where the UMS calculator is, but I downloaded it somewhere from like the Pearson website. Just check the UMS calculator to see how many points you have, how many points you need, and like, you can predict it. So I knew all of my courseworks were distinctions, so I could just predict, right, I'm going to get distinctions in all of this. How much will my grade change if I get 2 more UMS points? It won't, so therefore I'm not bothering. Like, I still came out with triple distinction starred. Those 2 UMS points wouldn't have done anything. Like, it's not worth resetting if it's not going to change your grade much. Yeah, do the past papers. For the biology stuff, if you did biology GCSE, if you did triple GCSE, that revision guide is beautiful. It does more than enough for you. It is just straightforward biology. As in, you don't need to think. So like in the other exams, you need to think, how does it affect them? Like all of that kind of wishy-washy stuff. Biology, no. It is this is a coronary heart disease, this is what coronary heart disease is, treatment is this, full stop, move on. That is all you need to say. It's a lot simpler than you think, but you just make statements, whereas in the other units you are making essays, explanations, descriptions, all of that kind of rubbish. Also for paper 1, work on your timings before you even start the exam. Like, say the timing has started, flick through and just see where the questions are and how they change, because in paper 2, in unit 2, you know that you're going to have a 2, 4, 6, 8 mark, 12 mark, something like that. You know the structure. In paper 1, unit 1, you've got no idea. You could have anything. We had loads of 4 markers at the beginning and then a set of like 3 12 markers in a row. When you get to the end of the exam and you turn over and you've only got 20 minutes left and you've got 3 12 markers left, it's going to be quite stressful. Like, a lot of people in my unit 1 exam did not finish the paper because the timing, they didn't figure out the timings properly. So flick through the paper before you even start and then think, right, do you want to get the essays out of the way, or do you need to just work out at what timing point you need to finish this question? Like, figure out roughly your timings. Don't buy the textbook, buy the revision guide. They're like £5 on Amazon. Your teacher might have a copy, and when you get a copy you get an online copy, so when you're doing like revision in class you can get the online copy on your laptop. Then print the spec, read the spec, religiously the spec. Get your teacher to print you past papers. If they have access to them, which they should, find past papers. Get Revising. My teacher really recommended that. I thought it was crap, but some people like Get Revising. If you go on Get Revising and search in health and social care, you might be able to find like people have made like revision mind maps of pies and stuff like that. But honestly, focus on the coursework. Get the coursework out of the way, because you have so much time to revise for exams. Then do exam revision after the coursework is done, and spend your holidays revising for exams. Spend your term time doing the coursework, holidays revising for exams, but in the term time, make sure you actually understand the content first. Like, have a copy of the spec for Unit 1, make sure that you actually understand what's happening. You don't have to know it, but that you can understand, so that when it comes to revising, you're not teaching yourself, you are revising what you already know. So, that wasn't a very long video. In terms of the mark scheme, you can score quite low and still do well. So you really don't have to do phenomenally to do good, if that makes sense. That is all I have to say. I will link my other video below, and I also sell my courseworks if you want to look at them, so I will link the websites I sell them on down below as well. This is